let me continue my lecture on why people might play a Nash equilibrium. In the last lecture, two elements are crucial for players to play in a Nash equilibrium: rationality and correct beliefs about what others are going to do. Okay? So in this lecture, I provide two reasoning why people become rational and why people form correct beliefs about what others are going to do. Okay, so my explanations are going to be based on communication and some adjustment. Okay, so the first explanation why people might play Nash equilibrium. Well, if players don't know how to play a game, a reasonable thing for them to do is to get together and talk about what they should do. Okay? So before playing a game, player might get together and talk about what they should do. This story perfectly applies to the dating game, the battle of the sexes game. Okay? So this reasoning, pre-play communication leads to Nash equilibrium, says that pre-play communication gives you the correct beliefs about what others are going to do. It perfectly applies to the dating game, battle of the sexes. Okay, so this was the battle of the sexes game. Two destinations for dating: football stadium or shopping mall. And the two equilibrium, everybody goes to, man and woman go together for a football game. This is one equilibrium. The other equilibrium, they go together for shopping. Okay? Ex ante, when they don't talk, it's not so clear which equilibrium to play. So naturally, in this situation, they just talk. Okay? They make phone call and discuss what they should do tomorrow. Okay, so discussion before playing this game tomorrow. And discussion may, that discussion may lead to a particular equilibrium. They may agree to go for a football game. This is one particular Nash equilibrium. Okay, the important point is this promise, this agreement to go to a football stadium will be kept without reward or punishment. Okay, promise of going to football by men and women will be kept without any reward or punishment because it's a Nash equilibrium. Okay, so they reach an agreement to go for football game, and given that your partner is going for football game, you have an incentive to follow the original agreement. Okay, so an agreement is reached by means of conversation and discussion, and they promise to do something. And this promise will be kept without any special reward or punishment. This is called self-enforcing agreement. Okay? So one important interpretation of Nash equilibrium is that Nash equilibrium represents self-enforcing agreement, as in the game of dating, battle of the sexes. Okay? To really understand the nature of self-enforcing agreement, it's better to look at a situation where agreement is not self-enforcing. So let's look at the prisoner's dilemma game. Okay, so if you recall prisoner's dilemma game, mutual cooperation, remain silent, is better for both players, player 1 and 2. So let's assume that before they are going to be interrogated by the police force, they get together and talk what they should do. Obviously, mutual silence is better for them. So let's suppose they reached an agreement that they are not going to confess in police interrogation. Okay, this is a wonderful agreement, better for them, but it's not enforced because it's not a Nash equilibrium. Tomorrow, when interrogation stage comes, each player has an incentive to deviate from their original promise because, confession is better for them no matter what the other player is going to do. Okay? So if an agreement is not a Nash equilibrium, it cannot be fulfilled. The wonderful example is this let's cooperate agreement in prisoner's dilemma game. It's a very good promise, but it's not a Nash equilibrium. So promise is very likely to be breached. Okay, so that's the reasoning, originally I presented 3 reasoning why people might play a Nash equilibrium. Pre-play communication was the second reasoning. And now let me move on to the last argument. Okay? Dynamic adjustment by means of trial and error leads to Nash equilibrium. Okay, so people may not be so rational, and people often may not have an opportunity to get together and talk about what they should do. So naturally, they won't play Nash equilibrium. But if they encounter similar or same game again, they have better idea about how to play the game. So accumulating experience in the same game or similar game eventually leads to a Nash equilibrium. Okay, so by accumulating experience, you have better idea about what others do. Okay, so accumulating experience leads to correct beliefs about what others are going to do. And by accumulating your experience, you are becoming more and more rational. You can find out and switch to better strategies. Okay, so by means of this trial and error adjustment, eventually you may go to a Nash equilibrium. Okay, so we have seen a wonderful example where Nash equilibrium can be explained in this way. That's the traffic allocation around Hamamatsu city in Japan. So in the first week, we have seen that the traffic allocation around this city was closely, Nash equilibrium closely explains the allocation of traffic around the Hamamatsu city. Okay, so people here are playing a Nash equilibrium. But this Nash equilibrium didn't come from rational reasoning of drivers. And obviously, all those drivers didn't have any opportunity to get together and talk about which equilibrium to play. Okay, you go to this way and I go to this way. And they didn't have any opportunity to talk about what allocation they should follow. And this Nash equilibrium emerged from trial and error adjustment of players. So one day I took this route and it was too crowded and I switched to better route. And by means of this trial and error adjustment, I got better expectations. I got better beliefs about what is the traffic of each route. And eventually I'm choosing optimal route. And then people play Nash equilibrium of this traffic game.